The latest episode of the series is here. In this episode, we finally get to see Godzilla beating up other monsters. So let's delve into the plot. Lisa, who arrived in the world at the center of the Earth. She didn't expect to encounter her grandmother Tracy, who was reported to have passed away. Tracy, who went missing back in the 1950s, naturally didn't recognize her future granddaughter. She urged Lisa to leave quickly, because this place was the territory of monsters and it was not safe to stay for long. Lisa told Tracy that besides her, 2 other people fell into the rift. Tracy said that she had been sending signals to the outside world. If your search team follows you, they can discover this signal. They can rescue us. Presumably, the stable fluctuations detected by the detection team. It was the signal that Tracy managed to send out. Upon hearing this, Lisa realized that her grandmother had misunderstood. She told Tracy that she wasn't part of the search team. She wasn't a member of the Emperor organization either. Lisa was about to reveal her own identity. Mary suddenly emerged from the bushes. Then, David's voice came from a distance. He was hiding behind a big tree, afraid to show himself, because he was nearly 100 years old. Tracy, stranded in a different world, still looked youthful. David asked her how long she thought she had been underground. Tracy showed a puzzled expression. She seemed unsure why David asked in this way. She had only fallen into the rift for 57 days. It turned out that Tracy still believed it was 1959. David told her that it was already 2015. There was a temporal and spatial gravitational distortion effect in this place. The outside world had changed beyond recognition. In the end, David showed himself from behind the tree. Tracy looked at him in disbelief. There was a gap of exactly 56 years between them. Only they could truly understand this feeling. David never thought he would be able to see Tracy in his lifetime. He regretfully told her that Andrew had already passed away. Lisa finally stepped forward from the side. She told Tracy, "I am Bernie's daughter, and I am your biological granddaughter." On the other side, Bernie told Tammy. He went to the desert to open the rift and lure out the monsters, to prove that the underground network truly existed. If it weren't for the Emperor organization's disbelief in the existence of other worlds, perhaps the San Francisco incident would never have occurred. Tammy was speechless upon hearing this. He had disappeared inexplicably for such a long time. What he had done was just to prove this theory was correct. However, Lisa didn't die in the San Francisco incident. She died because of searching for you. Bernie had nothing more to say at this point, but he had to find a way for humanity to survive, to prevent more tragedies from happening. Tammy couldn't accept her father's indifference, so she refused their request for cooperation. The scene shifted to inside the Emperor organization's base. The gamma-ray indices in various locations had stabilized. Although they were still at a high level, it is not enough to trigger the end of the world. Weir has mobilized all available personnel, restoring the network in most of the outposts, but she didn't continue with the investigation. The suspicious signals detected by the team members, because compared to rescuing the so-called survivors underground, there are more important matters waiting for the Emperor organization to handle. She can't ignore the lives of 7 billion people. Tim feels that this argument doesn't make sense. Perhaps the solution to saving 7 billion people lies in the hands of those 3 people underground. Tim hopes that we should reconsider it. Otherwise, as David said, the Emperor organization will truly be just an empty shell with no real purpose. Weir is simply stubborn. She even told Tim to do his assigned tasks well. Otherwise, she will indefinitely extend Weir's sick leave. Meanwhile, Tracy took the 3 of them to her campsite. The gamma simulator from that year is still here. She modified the transmission pipeline in it, so that it can emit directed gamma-ray pulse signals to the outside world. Tracy asked if the Emperor organization had disbanded. Lisa truthfully answered that it still exists to this day. Even her father is a member of it.
Tell me about him.
Lisa struggled for a while before saying, "Bernie is very family-oriented." Lisa only chose a few good words to tell her grandmother. David ahead interrupted their conversation. Since Tracy was so curious about Bernie's life, why not go back and ask him in person? As long as this simulator is here, he has a way to bring everyone back to the surface. The 3 of them wanted to move the machine back to its original position. David couldn't help but joke, "If we can go back." He doesn't even know what year we would jump to. He hopes that there would be robotic butlers at that time. Mary and Lisa couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. The 2 of them were ready to find a flat place to rest for a while.
Seriously, don't go far.
David and Tracy have precious solitude time. The 2 of them inevitably talked about Andrew. Tracy wanted to know how he died, because David himself also fell into a deep pit back then. He only heard rumors about Andrew's death. It was rumored that Andrew led an expedition to an island. He wanted to prove that certain theories about monsters were true. As a result, he never returned after that. David slowly narrated the changes of the outside world. Humans have landed on the moon. Various smart products like cars and smartphones appeared. People are still the same, with conflicts and victories. After chatting for a while, the two of them decided to go find Lisa and the others. Meanwhile, Bernie finished packing his luggage in Tokyo. He was preparing to make a trip back to San Francisco. He intended to go through the divorce procedures with Lisa's mother. Upon hearing this, Tammy's mother immediately stood up. While speaking, she took off her wedding ring. Ever since the incident in San Francisco, she and her son have been trying their best to contact Bernie. She has been looking forward to the day when the family would reunite. While after learning the truth, Tammy's mother, she didn't have the courage to continue living with Bernie. She just wanted to tell her husband, no matter what happened between them, Tammy should not lose his connection with his father. After Tammy's mother finished speaking, she placed the wedding ring on Bernie's luggage. Tammy, who was full of worries, went out to seek alcohol to relieve his worries. He didn't expect to encounter an unexpected person, Tim, who couldn't convince Weir. He still refused to give up on that strange signal, so he could only discuss it with Tammy. He took out the data on gamma-ray bursts. He briefly expressed his own thoughts. Since someone is emitting signals from inside the rift, it means that there is indeed another world inside. In that case, Lisa and the other two are likely still alive. If they want to rescue them, they have to ask for Bernie's help. No one understands this data better than him. Meanwhile, Bernie is watching the video message left by his father, the old man who threw the backpack into the water at the beginning of the story. He is Andrew, who went to the island to seek evidence, until his last moment of life. He wanted to prove his theory. This is also one of the reasons why Bernie is so obsessed with the other world. He wants to fulfill his father's wish. Just then, Tim and Tammy suddenly came over. They showed Bernie the data and information. However, Bernie refused to believe in events with very low probabilities, because Bernie couldn't bear the pain of gaining hope and then being disappointed again. He would rather believe that Lisa is already dead. In the end, Tammy convinced her father to join. On the other side, David and the other three carried the simulator and moved forward. Along the way, Lisa couldn't help but ask, "Why does this place resemble Earth so much?" Tracy explained that because it is a part of Earth, just like the axis of the world. It is the polar region between heaven and earth. Shortly after they walked out, they saw colorful lights. Lisa asked, "We are underground. How does the light come in?" David asked her to imagine the rift as the rabbit hole in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. They didn't fall underground. Instead, they entered an unknown world. The four of them took a break and continued moving forward. Finally, they found the spaceship that David had parked there years ago. He immediately climbed inside to test it. The instruments inside were indeed intact and undamaged. After all, in terms of the time in the other world, the spaceship had only been there for a few weeks. Now, as long as they connect the wires to the simulator, they can leave this cursed place. Unexpectedly, roars of monsters suddenly came from the distance. David instructed Tracy and the other two to enter the cabin first. He would complete the final assembly. To his surprise, Tracy decided to stay here. Her husband had already passed away. Her son had grown up in her absence. Tracy had already been abandoned by the outside world. For over 50 years, she didn't have the courage to go back and face Bernie. She was afraid of disrupting his originally peaceful life. Lisa interrupted Tracy's words.
These monsters have taken everything from me.
Tracy, in order to solve the issue of human survival, she agreed to leave with them. The four of them entered the cabin and fastened their seat belts. David asked them to pay attention to the radar display in front of them. Once this thing starts beeping, it means that the simulator has successfully attracted a monster. When it reaches a distance of 910 meters, David will turn off the simulator. When the monster retreats, it will also pull them into the rift. Just then, the sound of a monster came from outside. The simulator hadn't attracted the monsters from the rift yet, but it attracted the nearby monsters. Its enormous wings stirred up a strong wind. Before the four of them could react, the radar display started sounding an alarm. Something was pulled out of the rift. The monster was only 2,130 meters away from them. The giant creature in the air still refused to leave. Its wings almost knocked the spaceship over. One of the connections of the simulator's wires snapped. David knew that he had to act quickly. He opened the cabin door regardless of the danger. He crawled out and reconnected the wires. The enormous bat-like creature spotted David. It took the opportunity to crawl towards him. Just then, a vague dark figure appeared at the rift. Tracy crawled out of the hatch and stared ahead. Unexpectedly, the three of them had attracted Godzilla. The bat-like creature from earlier suddenly rushed over. It bit Godzilla's neck. The bat-like creature exerted its strength and attacked again. It even sprayed a large amount of saliva at Godzilla. Green slime covered Godzilla's eyes. Godzilla caught the bat-like creature and tore it in half. It threw the creature directly into the nearby rift. The tremendous suction pulled the spaceship in. David quickly ran and caught up. Tracy couldn't just watch him stay behind. She tightly held onto David's hands. Unfortunately, the cabin jerked. It threw off their grip. David knew he couldn't escape this disaster.
Thank you for everything.
The spaceship, along with Godzilla, was sucked into the rift, and David was forever left behind. A group of staff members came to pick them up. Then Tammy rushed out and hugged Lisa. It turned out that Bernie had made careful calculations. He had found the rift where they would appear. Lisa immediately hugged her father. She had so much to say, but for now, their priority was to let Tracy recognize Bernie. Lisa told Tracy that Tammy was also her grandson, although the scene of the family recognizing each other was heartwarming. But the sudden appearance of a person confused the four of them. How could Mary's heartless boss be here? It turned out that Bernie and Tim's entire mission was funded by her. Lisa and the others had been missing for 2 years. A lot of things had happened during this period. Just as they finished speaking, an alarm sounded in the air. Lisa looked back in confusion. The story of this season ends here. Beyond expectation, King Kong appeared at the end as a bonus scene. It is reasonable to speculate that this is to build anticipation for the release of Godzilla vs. Kong 2. Which is set to be released in March this year. Although the quality of the series is good, the plot is too fluffy and dragged on. This series is more about establishing the worldview of the entire monster universe. Its complete worldview will help us better understand the plot of the entire monster universe. If you enjoy my channel, please click the subscribe button for me, Tilda.